organization that is dedicated to organizing for healthy, just, and self-reliant communities across Western Colorado. We really take a community organizing grassroots approach, meaning that you all help us set the priorities for the organization. We were founded in 1980, and this is a picture of some of our founders outside of a schoolhouse in Montrose, when a bunch of folks are finding common cause to join together and build more collective power to fight against a bunch of extractive projects that were happening across our region, from coal mining to molybdenum mining to massive clear cuts that were happening in the forest. So we came together around a lot of environmental issues and really have a very strong track record of success working to make a more sustainable Western slope possible. And some of the folks on this panel that are going to be presenting to you are folks who have worked their whole lives to make that vision possible. And we're so honored that you're still part of our organization and helped us get to where we are. And something that we would also just let folks know is we changed our name. We went through kind of a rebranding process in 2017 to mission and revision the organization so that we could be the future organization for the next 40 years of grassroots organizing in Western Colorado, and expanded our scope to include a little bit more of social justice like components. We've always worked on those things a little bit, but we're trying really hard to center equity and justice in our work as well. And that has led to the creation of some new programs like the Western Slope Youth Voter Initiative, which you will hear about more tonight, and some of our work around mental health access and immigrant rights and solidarity with folks who are dealing with all sorts of different oppressions coming at them from different parts of our society. And we're also working a lot more on economic justice issues. A new program area that we've been building out is really talking about what does it mean to actually transition to a fossil-free future. We've done a lot of work on trying to improve drilling practices and give landowners more rights in Western Colorado. But it's also time to really talk about what are real viable economic solutions for our communities as we see our energy landscape shift. So no shortage of things to do. And if you want to learn more about who we are and get involved, please go to our website at westerncoloradoalliance.org. You can find more about some of our primary issue areas, which you'll hear a little bit about tonight, but also you can kind of get a sense of who we are and the work we've done. And thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening, and hope that we can do some more great work together at the legislature this year.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. So next, we're going to turn it over to all of our organizers who are currently on staff with us. And our organizers work both in issue areas regionally across the Western Slope, and also some of our organizers work with affiliate groups on a local level as well. For today, we're only going to talk about the issues, but again, there's plenty of ways to learn more, including communicating with us after asking a question in the chat. So first, our mission is that we believe that now today we can build a future where engaged local voices are leading communities across Western Colorado that are healthy, just, and self-reliant through community organizing and leadership development. And that's what we try to do in all of the ways that we run our work. I'm going to turn it over to Nick now to give you just a little bit of information on public lands.
Great. Thank you, Jeriel. Yeah. So the picture you are seeing right now actually came from a hike we did this October in support of the CORE Act, which is Colorado Outdoor Recreation and Economy Act. We went to Hope Lake outside. You can see us socially distanced there, had a great time. The CORE Act is looking to protect 400,000 acres of land here in Colorado. One of the portions that's part of the economy portion is $62 billion was part of the outdoor economy for Colorado in 2017. So obviously the great benefits to go hiking like here, as well as the economic benefits and social draws, et cetera, that CORE Act can provide. And next up, we have GMUG. And it's going to be all acronyms all day. But GMUG stands for Grand Mesa Uncompahgre Gunnison Forest Plan. So the map you are seeing here is just that. You can see the Grand Mesa if you're in the valley constantly. That's something that we love to go part of. The red areas is where we're really trying to get some more protections, as well as the yellow. This is going to protect wildlife and our waters and really make sure that we can keep these landscapes secure for future generations. So we're really excited for supporting GMUG, and that will continue this year. Last but not least, in our public lands work is the People, Public Land, and Climate Collaborative. We're very excited. We're joining with a whole group ranging across the country in support of turning public lands away from being one of the highest contributors to greenhouse gases to reversing them and really being a climate solution. On this chart right now, the United States is second, and that's just the United States public lands, not even as a whole. We are ahead of these other countries with how much bad greenhouse gases are coming off of our public lands. So what this group is working on is we're very supportive of the Holland nomination for the Department of Interior, as well as the current oil and gas leasing moratorium. And we are looking for ways to turn public lands into clean energy solutions for our planet. So those are the three highlights we have for you today going on in the public lands realm. And with that, I can toss it over to Brian to talk oil and gas.
Thanks, Nick. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Williams. I am Western Colorado Alliance's oil and gas organizer. I'm excited to be with you here tonight. So there's a couple of things that I'd like to talk about, but first, folks should know, Western Colorado Alliance, we have been engaged in oil and gas issues literally for decades. It has been something that's been important to this region. It's been important to the state of Colorado. It's a big part of our economy, including out here on the Western Slope. You know, the Piceance Basin is estimated to hold some 100 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, right? You look at how many jobs that the oil and gas industry supplies, about 11,000 jobs, including latent jobs that are made for industry impacts. About 9.2% of the region's GDP comes from there. So this is really a big part of our economy right now. But we also know, there are some real challenges that come along with that. And we have to manage the decline of what has ultimately been a very volatile industry. And there's some real challenges that some local communities have faced. Here in Battlement Mesa, we've seen folks who live in the unincorporated area, having rigs come in and drill within their planned unit development, right close to their homes, as close as 500 feet in some cases. And so this has been an ongoing issue for a very long time for people, because particularly when oil and gas rigs are drilling so close to homes, the fumes are overwhelming. It's not good for you. And of course, it's emitting a ton of methane into the atmosphere, which is one of those greenhouse gases that we're worried about. So fortunately, our oil and gas committee has been hard at work. And this last year, again, after decades of work, we have finally got some really strong new rules that have come into effect, right? So the first and the biggest is the 2,000-foot setback. There are exceptions to this rule, but generally speaking, any new wells that are going to develop now, thanks to the efforts of community members like yourself, who have decided to serve on our oil and gas committee, new sites are going to be at least 2,000 feet away from homes and schools. We vented the harmful practice of venting and flaring, which is one of the principal emitters, putting methane and other terrible things into the atmosphere. We've created automatic standing through the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission for folks so that they can have a say when companies come to this commission and ask for new permits. Protections for disproportionately impacted communities, another huge piece, right? So looking at people who are linguistically isolated, for example, if you have a community who completely speaks Spanish and you post a notice in English, they're not going to be able to respond, and they're not going to be able to see what sort of options they have available to them. It's an environmental justice issue, and it's something that falls into our larger commitment as an organization to seeing environmental justice promoted here in Colorado and beyond. And of course, we've also were able to secure analysis of cumulative impacts and alternative locations, which is huge, right? If you have a choice on where you're going to drill a well, if you have to drill at all, maybe it shouldn't be near an endangered species. Maybe it shouldn't be in Gunnison sage grouse habitat. These are the sort of things that we're looking towards now. So these are reforms that we've won. We're seeing them implemented. We're tracking this. We're making sure that the COGCC makes good on these promises and that industry is held accountable. But our work's not done either. We've got a couple of other things that we're looking forward to this year right now. And so what we have before us, among other things, is reform on bonding and reclamation rules. This is making sure that the public is compensated fairly for the privilege of being able to extract minerals from the earth, and for that matter, making sure that it's done safely and in a responsible manner as it needs to be done at all. We want to improve enforcement and transparency rules around this. And that's something that we're going to be working towards in both the Air Quality Control Commission and the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. We want to reduce the number of greenhouse gas emissions from oil and gas just in general. That's going to be a very important thing that we're going to be discussing in the Air Quality Control Commission. And one other issue that's very important for our committee at this time is land use in Garfield County, and particularly this issue of reverse setbacks. How close can a developer get to existing wells? We know it's not good for us, and we know if you get too close to a well, you are at an increased risk of things like blood disease, cancer, and neurological disorders, right? So there's a whole bunch of reasons that we need to be seriously invested in looking into these. We're excited to do the work, and we hope that if you're excited, that you reach out, you're willing to join us. I'm always available. Feel free to email me, call me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and pass it off to my colleague, Joel Dyer. Oh, also, this is a map of all of the existing wells in Colorado right now. So there are about 60,000 wells throughout Colorado, and you can see they're in various statuses. And if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you can see where we are in the Piceance Basin and all the drilling that's been done for that natural gas. So it's a pervasive issue. It's something that is going to be important for us for a long time to come.
Brian, it looks like there's plenty of room left.
Drill, baby, drill, right?
Thank you very much for that handoff. Hey, everybody, I'm Joel. I am Regional Organizer for Clean Energy, the Western Card Alliance. This is the quick and dirty of everything we've been doing. 5 years ago, Colorado was probably in the top 30 states for clean tech, clean jobs creation. We are now easily in the top 5. Excuse you, come here, dog. In the last 3 years, our state has implemented a climate action plan that sets a roadmap for utilities and producers to reduce emissions 80% by 2030. Many people on this call, many people in Western Card Alliance worked very hard to get that passed. We now are at a point where 1 in 50 workers in Colorado, folks in the labor force, are working in a clean tech generation job or a job like energy efficiency or very quickly growing service and EV and other jobs like that. Currently, about 60,000 people fit that description. And that compares to 10,000 Coloradans who are working in legacy fossil fuel industries. And that all happened in the last 5 years. The scale of the change, the scale of Colorado's ramping up to really set the standard for the Intermountain West, if not, the nation, has really been tremendous. And WCA has passed state legislation, has worked on rulemakings that made all this possible, and offered members a way to make sense of those processes and make their voice heard. So what is our team tackling this year? Excuse me. At the local level, there are 2 other stories that I think are worth highlighting, and that is we have secured funding for a sustainability coordinator at the city of Grand Junction. And we are working on a citizen advisory board to be launched this year that would institute a citizen process around the city council and city planning department for the enactment of a city level sustainability strategy. So that's some really exciting stuff here in our home territory. At the state level, the clean energy team will continue to engage on new state legislation. We are going to be pushing accountability for our rural electric co-ops, where there are a lot of democratic governance issues. And we'll be working in the Central Slope in counties like Garfield, Mesa, and Montrose to work on an integrated regional clean tech jobs creation strategy, bringing some of the success of neighboring counties like Delta and Garfield to the broader region in a more holistic, integrated way, so that we can wake up in a decade and the words, solar installer or home efficiency retrofit are going to be common words in the hiring section of the Daily Sentinel. So we're really excited about all that stuff. The last thing I'll flag is that parallel to all this, there are three communities close to our home territory where old legacy coal generation is going away. And it's not going away because of the climate planning that Colorado is enacting. It's going away because all this new stuff is so much cheaper than coal. And so those market forces are driving big community transitions where what have been multi-generational, good paying jobs for some of these communities are set to go away over the next couple of years. And so we have worked at the state level and in advocacy channels to support the creation of a state office of just transition that is being run by the state of Colorado to come up with plans, strategies, and resources for those communities, so that those communities and those workers can have choices about their future and have a chance to write their next chapters. And there's a lot of work going on there. It's a lot of really exciting stuff. It's really the most serious tackling of the future of rural Colorado, of rural economic development that it's happened in a long time out here. So having said that, our commitment to anybody who's interested in clean energy work or coal community transition work is that we can help you make sense of everything that's happening. We can connect you with an awesome team and provide discrete, time-efficient, fun ways to make a difference, to make your voice heard on these issues. So thank you, everybody. And I'm sorry for a dog, a garbage truck, and some other interruption. Jerry, will you kick it off to the next?
Yeah, if you had any of those on your Zoom bingo card, make sure to check that off. Yes, so I'll be quick here. Main focus of our food and ag work right now is around something called the Animal Shares Act. We've had ranchers come up to us talking about wait times for processing of 2 years or more to get their cattle in. And I'm hearing people thinking of leaving the state. So we need to be able to help our ranchers. And this is something that can be quick and will allow that to happen. So what Animal Shares is, if you want to buy a cow right now for your family, you can either buy a whole, half, or quarter cow. I can't fit that in my fridge. Not a lot of people can. But what this does is it allows you to buy a share of the herd, making you the owner of a cow, and then you can get that processed through custom exempt, which is a much faster processing form, and get smaller cuts of meat. So I can just go ahead and get a steak ready, or get my name on the books for a set of ribs. All this stuff will help our smaller, like 50 head or less cattle ranchers that are connected to the land, that want to do the right things, that want to follow the best for their animals, and really put the power away from the big corporations and meat packers that we see on the Front Range, and bring it back to the small mom and pop shops and generational ranchers here on the slope. So if you're interested in this, if you're interested in helping our ranchers, or self-interest in having some more selection on the food you eat, some direct farm to table, let me know, let us know, and we'd love your help, because this is going to be a big push in the Colorado legislature this year, and we really want to help our ranchers out. And that's our big announcement for local food and ag.
Thanks so much to all of the organizers. It's really hard to summarize the work that goes on because not only do we have the issue work that we do, like I mentioned, we have the affiliate groups that we work with as well. So our affiliate groups are located in Mesa County, Garfield County, Montrose, and Ouray. And for example, something that wouldn't have been reflected in the issues that we work on is about 2 years ago, we ran a huge effort to try and get a community center passed in Grand Junction. And through that effort, we had over 100 volunteers on the ground for several months, knocking doors. All of this must sound shocking because it was pre-COVID. And we knocked over 14,000 doors and had fabulous conversations. In UVA right now, they're doing some fantastic work around child care. And so there's just really great things going on that's hard to capture. But our issues that we work in happen regionally. And so we work with our members across the organization with these issues. So thank you so much. I'm going to actually take over the West Slope Youth Vote portion. We were going to have our chair, Sierra, give us our presentation or a short, but several of our Youth Vote students are actually climbing this evening, rock climbing. So when you ask them to give a presentation versus do rock climbing, one is just more exciting than the other. And there's actually, we've got some champs, rock climbing champs among our internship. So very quickly, I just want to introduce you to the West Slope Youth Vote program. This program is in 5 counties and over 12 high schools at this point. We have between 24 and 36 active interns on any given year. And what these interns do is pretty awesome. This is a student-led program. They're the ones who decide the work and the content that they're going to do, and Western Colorado Alliance just provides the support and the staff to make it happen. And so what these students do is they've created a Western Youth Issues Report that they put out annually. They take this report into the schools and help connect students to bills that are moving through the state legislature that have a direct impact on their lives. These are high school bills that, of course, high schoolers don't have an opportunity to vote on. And so they make their voices heard by talking to legislators and even sometimes engaging in the drafting and or lobbying on the legislation that they want to see. What they do is they take this issues report into the high schools and they also ask questions. So they take a survey into the high schools and they ask students what's important to them, what matters, if they want to stay on the Western Slope, where they want to go, what issues hit them most deeply and what needs they have. And then when they're done, we compile this survey and we put it into a pretty one-page document, and our students take it to the state legislature and they give it to our legislators. And they say, if you want to work on student issues, here's what the students in Western Colorado are saying is the most important thing that you could be working on. Oftentimes, this means that our focus is on mental health, behavioral health, support for students who need some support in those areas. So one of the bills that they worked on last year was a mental health day. So it was passed in Colorado last year that students are able to take a sick day, an excused absence for not just physical illness, but also just emotional and mental health needs. So it's a really awesome program. Every year they put together a series of videos that they put out and distribute. They do a lot of actions around Get Out the Vote, and they participate in a lot of our other program areas as well. They've won awards for the amount of students that they've registered to vote in the high schools. So alongside their program, they do voter registration as a huge piece of the presentations they give in the classrooms. And they're just active year-round in various ways. Once COVID is over, we are really excited to get back into the community because, of course, schools have been largely impacted and has led to an impact on their ability to connect with other fellow students. They're working on a really exciting bill this year, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to leave that to one of our members to talk about. So with that, I will jump out of the West Slope Youth Vote. And before we get to our members, I'm actually going to take us over to Saul. Saul is our legislative liaison. So he lives and works in Denver and is at the Capitol every day during the legislative session. And amongst his clients is us. And so we're really privileged to have him there. And so Saul, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Hey, thank you, Jeriel. I appreciate everybody for all your work. Yeah, so I'm a lobbyist, if you're a member of WCA or would like to be. So my job is to go to the Capitol and advocate for your issues, whether we be opposing a bill or supporting a bill. That's what I do. I'm the face down there. So I'm also a West Slope native, so proud Colorado West Slope member of there. So in the legislature, we have 65 members in the House and 35 members in the Senate. 41 Democrats and 24 Republicans in the House. So that's a pretty large majority. They are elected every 2 years and have 8-year terms. So that's 4 terms of 2 years. Then in the Senate, we have 20 Democrats and 15 Republicans. And they also have 8 years, but it's 2 terms of 4 years. So that's kind of how it works out. And it's, it's about as good as it gets there. So. Next slide. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have the. There we go. Over on the West Slope, you have as your senators Ray Scott and Bob Rankin, and Kerry Donovan and Don Korn. Pretty good people. 3 Republicans, one Democrat, but all good to work with. For your House members, your representatives, you have Mark Catlin, Julie McCluskey, Barb McLaughlin, Janice Rich, Dylan Roberts, Perry Will, and Matt Soper. Again, all really quality people. Let's see, it's 4 Republicans and 3 Democrats. There's that split for you all. So next slide. Yeah, so how a bill becomes a law. I'm going to run through this very quickly because it can get really complicated just with process, but just make it super or as simple as I can. A bill is introduced into the legislature by a legislator. That's who we call our sponsor. If we're going to run a bill, we got to find a sponsor to carry that bill for us. So they get the bill introduced after going through a drafting process, basically coming up with the language of that bill. And the Speaker of the House, we'll just say it's starting in the House, will send it to its committee of reference. So whatever appropriate committee they believe that that bill should be sent to. At that point, it goes to the committee. They have debate, and the committees are made up of experts in the area. So on judiciary, you have lawyers. On health, you have doctors and health experts. So same with education and natural resources and environment and stuff like that. So if the bill gets out of committee, it then goes to the entire floor of the House. And you need 33 votes. That is the majority of 65 to get it passed out of second reading, and then third reading, which is a recorded vote of all 65 members. You have to get 33 again. And if you get that 33, you're good. And then you go all the way to the other chamber and do the same exact thing. The president of the Senate sends the bill to the appropriate committee of reference. It then goes to the whole floor of 35 members. You need 18 votes there, which is the majority of 35, for second and third reading, the recorded vote. Once that takes place and you get your 33 and 18, you then have to go to the most important vote, which is one person, and it's the governor. And the governor at this point, who's Jared Polis, has 3 choices. He can sign the bill into law. He can veto the bill, which just makes the bill null and void, or he can wait 10 days during session and the bill becomes law automatically. That's his way of basically acquiescing to the legislature. Yeah, so that's that little process.
Thanks so much, Saul. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move over to our members?
No, I just, what you guys are saying about your activities in the legislature, it's so important to have members engage and give us their input, especially, people who are living it every single day. For them to be able to go to the legislative committee or just the WCA leadership, and even better, come over to the Capitol if you have a chance, it carries a lot of weight. Just having you all as the members and engaged citizens, giving your input, feedback, it's huge, and your legislators actually do notice it. might seem like it falls on deaf ears, but it really doesn't. They do listen. The legislature works for you. So just stay involved, stay engaged. It really is important. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Saul. So woven into that last slide were some really important times through a bill's life when we have an ability to make an impact. And so we're not going to get there just yet, but just so you know, we're going to come back to that when we get to our asks and actions, so that we can talk about how we as individuals can participate in the life of that bill. But first, and I almost want to say most importantly, I want to hear from our members, because our members really do fantastic work. And the first member that I'm going to introduce is Gretchen. And Gretchen is a founder of Western Colorado Alliance. So if there's anyone who understands the work that we do, she has been one of the individuals who's been there to make it happen since the beginning. And especially in the legislative committee, she serves as the chair of our legislative committee. So she and I work closely together to make our lobby trips happen and be able to help connect folks to the legislature. And I just appreciate Gretchen so much, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Jeriel. Yes, I have been around quite a while. So our organization was not very old before we realized how we needed to have a voice at the Capitol. Club 20 says it's the voice of the Western Slope, and we just didn't think that was the case. They weren't the voice for our organization. So to be sure that our voices were heard at the Capitol, we hired our very first lobbyist, who happens to be our current lobbyist father, way back in 1986, and we have had a lobbyist ever since, which I think proves how committed this organization is to being effective at the legislature. And it's also kind of fun at the legislature, as you'll see in the picture. That is Emily in a pickle suit when we were working on the cottage foods bill, which got our lobbyist nicknamed the Pickle Lobbyist, which is a lot of fun. We have been going to the Capitol once every late winter, early spring for many years. And of course, we didn't get to go this time, but we still do have, because of the work of our allies and us, the opportunity to comment on bills remotely, which is wonderful. And what else did I want to tell you? Oh, I wanted to invite you to join the legislative committee. We meet once a week during the session, noon on Tuesdays. And if you're interested, shoot an email to Jeriel and she will get you on our list. So thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks so much, Gretchen. This is also proof that you can wear a pickle suit and become an executive director later on. Yeah, unfortunately, we won't be able to go to the Capitol this year, but we will be able to take great actions through this webinar. Thank you again so much, Gretchen. I just want to quickly say that one of the cool things about our members is there's something unique about everyone. And when I say members, I really mean folks who are involved, whether dues paying or not. We have just such a great group of people who show up to do this work and are passionate about a variety of issues. And so not everything resonates with them, but something might. And what our legislative committee does is it brings together people who are passionate about all kinds of things, who are experts in all kinds of issues. And when I say experts, I could mean lawyers, yes, but I also mean farmers and ranchers. And I also mean maybe, writing experts. There's all kinds of experts that we need on our legislative committee that help the work come together in a really important way. So next, I'm really excited to introduce you to Don Bell. He is a newer member to us, and he's involved with several allied organizations that we work with as well. And he is a bankruptcy lawyer here in Grand Junction.
Hello, folks. As Jerry L. said, my name is Don Bell. I was raised on a farm in the South, and I know you've heard it said that you can take the boy out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the boy. I still love farming, even though I'm not there. I've lived here in Grand Junction for over 20 years, and during that 20 years, I've worked as an attorney, except for the 8 years that I took out to go drive truck over the road. A fellow worker during that time declared to me in absolute seriousness, liberalism is a genetic defect. I was born and raised in the South. My older sister and I were both endowed with that genetic defect. So here I am working on 2 committees at a progressive organization. I didn't find WCA until fairly recently. I became acquainted with it during the legislative session of 2018. I was in Denver to participate with the ACLU's grassroots legislative lobbying. And it happened to be the same day as the WCA legislative day, and I connected. Now, I no longer get to smell the animals. There's not much of that in my law office. And I don't get the aroma of freshly turned soil. And of course, back when I was on the farm, the freshly turned soil was mixed with tractor exhaust because we didn't have cabs on the tractors back then. But at least I get to learn and know some of what's going on in the farm. And of course, on the legislative committee, it gives me a spot to claim that I know a little bit about law. I really enjoy these 2 committees, and urge you, if you have interest in them, to join us. We'd be really glad to have you with us. See you soon.
Don, thank you so much. I just want to take a moment to mention that Don has been embarking upon something really awesome, a bill that we're not ready to message on just yet, but that is going to be coming out in this legislative session that deals with low-income families with families who are experiencing loss of income during this time of COVID pandemic. And the work that he's doing, I think, is going to have an impact across the state in a really positive way. And I just can't wait until we can talk a little bit more about that bill, and it'll be coming up in one of our webinars, and we're excited to work on it with Don. So thanks so much for your lending your talents to the work that you all do. So our last member panelist is Erica Kitzman. Erica is a dear friend. She's a postvention researcher, and she sits on the National American Association of Suicidology Public Health Committee, and she works on their K-12 committee within that. She in particular got involved with the legislative committees for the West Slope Youth Vote students, and to help elevate their voices and make an impact and bring her expertise to that issue to be able to make an impact. Erica is also working on a very awesome bill that we're going to see introduced this year. And it's just so awesome to see and rewarding to have committee members who came onto our legislative committee and didn't necessarily know how to take their idea and turn it into something. And Erica has done exactly that, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about it right now.
Thanks, Jeriel. Thanks for inviting me. In a couple of minutes, Jeriel's going to run a little poll, because in my experience, everybody thinks suicide is about mental illness, right? But it is not. The the Suicide Survivor Prevention Act is a bipartisan bill. It's historic, it's youth directed. I just love these youth and what they've been doing in the community. This bill is sponsored by Representative Janice Rich and Senator Carrie Donovan. It's the very first of its kind in the state, but also in the country. And it's receiving some national interest already, which is so encouraging. The difference between prevention and postvention, if you can just think of it in this way, that prevention is just like every other healthcare prevention. It's sort of general. We all get exercise, we take care of ourselves. And postvention is similar to patient care. It's what happened after we get run over by a car, after we have a heart attack. That's what postvention is about, and that's what this bill is about. So I just lost my place. Anyway, let's do that poll now for a second, Jeriel.
Okay, great. So I'm going to launch a poll. There's 3 questions on this poll. This is an anonymous poll, so you can click the answer and it won't say what your answer was. It will just give us a collective idea of what the answers overall were. So I'm going to go ahead and launch it right now. And panelists, if you could give me a thumbs up if you see it. I just want to make sure everyone can see the poll.
I can see it.
And we'll give you just a few minutes to look through and then make your decisions or choose your answers. I can't see who, but it looks like about half of you have had an opportunity to respond. So I'm going to give it just a little bit longer and then I'll go ahead and end the polling and it'll show us the results.
That was fun. I got to take my own poll. I've never gotten to do that before.
All right, we just have a couple more folks who are waiting to take the poll. This is great. I love the interaction that we get to have with you here. I think I'll go ahead and give us about 25 more seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and I'll go ahead and share the results out with everyone. So you should be able to see the results now. It looks like, Erica, do you want to take us through this poll?
Well, it's super cool that people knew that any of the above was true and that 40% was true. That is awesome. Yay. This is so cool. Good job, everybody. That's exciting that we have an informed community here already. I don't even know if you can hear me. I can't see anything but the poll. Can you guys hear me at all?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, that was really encouraging. It's unusual for a group to be that informed. And you guys can all read, you can read the graphic here. The biggest point here is that in 2017, after losing way too many of their friends, one is too many, these youth here who turned into the West Slope Youth Vote group, eventually they took the mic from the old people. I was one of them. And after 3.5 years of their work, they have, we've run their ideas through this giant bipartisan community focus group, and now it's in the hands of legislative advocates, Liliana Flanagan, Colin Wilhelm, and Daniel Haas. So yay, youth.
Thank you so much, Erica. And speaking of Daniel Haas, Liliana Flanagan was one of our legislative or West Slope Youth Vote interns for a number of years and has gone on to college now and is studying at NYU and is pretty fabulous. And with us right now, who's studying here at CMU, is Daniel Haas. We're really lucky to have him. He has come on with us as our first legislative intern for the legislative session. And it's something I'm really excited to have him do some work with us. And also, Daniel's been really engaged in some super important community happenings in the course of the year that I've known him. So, Daniel, I'm going to turn it over to you. And Daniel is going to be walking us through, okay, we've given you this presentation. This is kind of the work that we do. You can see now that all of our work intersects with the state legislature in some way or another. It's certainly not the only tool in our toolbox, but it's one that we can utilize often and every year. So Daniel's going to let us know a little bit more about what kind of actions you can expect to take if you participate in our biweekly webinar series, and what it might look like.
All right. Well, I would argue that this is probably the most important part, definitely second to the members, just because if you're on a panelist or if you're watching this, I think you're thinking, what can I do? You know, where can I get involved? This is where. So you'll see different options of ways that you can make a difference, and right by it are the estimated amount of time that it would take. Starting with remote testimony. So this would be providing a video testimony, and this is most fruitful in committee. So when that bill goes into committee, like Saul was talking about, you can send in a video testimony saying, here's why I would support this bill. Here's why you should support this bill too. Now, you may see the 2 hours and think, okay, you know, how can I sit here and talk on a bill for 2 hours? I'm not a political science professor. I'm not sure I can take that much time. And that would be correct. Most of that will be wait time. As you're calling in from out of the Capitol, you're going to be waiting for other people to go through the talking. You'll probably only be talking for about 5 minutes. The next is written testimony. This one is 45 minutes to sit down and write a letter effectively to the committee saying, hey, this is why I would support this bill. Once again, this is why you should support this bill. And once again, that will happen in committee, whether or not the bill is in committee in the House or the bill is in committee in the Senate. And this just helps the legislatures know that, hey, there are a lot of people supporting this bill. These are the reasons why people are supporting this bill, or alternatively, why they shouldn't support this bill. Next is calling your legislator. This is going to be useful either if your legislator is in the committee or if the bill has moved to the floor and it's being voted on. This is where you can call, maybe for me, it would be Janice Rich, call up Janice Rich and say, hi there, you know, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this bill that's coming up and why you should support it. And then you can kind of give a reason. We will also be providing certain talking points that you can use, but at the end of the day, it's your personal story. So, you know, you can have, okay, this is the things that WCA suggests, but also this is a little bit of my own personal bias in there and my own personal experience. Along the same lines, you can email your legislator. Now, over the summer, there was the Police Accountability Act that came up during the uprisings after the George Floyd murder within Colorado. And this is where over the summer, I was working in town with a group known as RAW, and WCA helped create some of that language that I was talking about earlier, so that massive amounts of emails, massive amounts of calls could be sent out. And it was impeccable how the Western Slope, which often kind of got associated with maybe not being as vocal on these issues, was so vocal. And a lot of it was thanks to WCA. And this is part of the reason why I definitely got interested and said, okay, you know, how can I get more involved? So once again, this can be another way that you get involved. And then the last two, writing a letter to the editor and asking your friends to participate. This is just rallying the troops effectively, saying, you know, hey, my friend is also interested in oil and gas, or is also interested in the Animal Shares Act. How can I get them involved? So it's a 1-minute conversation, just saying, hey, you know, Jillian, you should come and help me out. We should both write a letter together, and you can sit down and write a letter, or maybe you can convince them to do a video testimony with you. And then writing a letter to the editor is just trying to get that on a broader scale, obviously. So once again, Western Colorado Alliance would always help with the messaging if it's needed. We can provide certain talking points that you can help with, but at the end of the day, it's your story, and making sure that it is that personal story can really help its effectiveness. So Thank you, Jeriel.
Thanks so much, Daniel. I was joking with him earlier that I'm not quite sure if he sleeps. He's involved with so much, and just really an awesome person to have in our community. I'm so appreciative that he's involved with the Western Colorado Alliance and also with so many other good organizations doing work here in the Valley. So that's kind of it. This is really the conclusion or the end of our webinar. It's hopefully a good overview of the work that we do and how the legislature is such a large piece of that work for us to be able to make change. Really, it's about amplifying our voice and making sure that rural communities and here locally, we're creating healthy, just, and self-reliant communities, which is what is in our mission. This is a really hard part of the webinar where I wish I could see all of your faces and interact and be able to answer any questions you have. Really, I would invite you to ask any questions in the Q&A or in the chat if you have them, and our panelists will stick around. But if you've got other things to go off to, I am going to do one thing, and that is, my controls are missing though. How do I am going to drop in the chat my email address so that you can get in touch with me. And if you'd like to get in touch with any of our organizers, please feel free to email me or drop your information in the chat and let them know who you're interested in speaking with. So here's my email that I just put in the chat. If you'd like to talk with any of our other organizers as well, invite you to leave your information and request for someone to reach out to you, and they'll be really prompt about getting in touch. Our organizers love having one-on-one conversations when it's not COVID. We love to go grab coffee or tea and meet with new folks and learn what really brings you to the work. Because we can't do that right now, we'd love to have a phone conversation or even set up an individual Zoom meeting just to get to know you all a little bit better. So if you're interested in that, again, please reach out to our organizers. Or other organizers, I don't know if you'd like to leave your emails in the chat. But otherwise, thank you so much for attending this evening. I'm going to leave the meeting open just for a little while. So if you're getting in any last questions, you have an opportunity to do that. And thank you so much for coming.
Oh, and we're still on. Our winners of category include Joel Dyer with 16 words. My goodness. And Natalie was the winner from our audience at 9. The most spelled word was soil. So I love seeing that. Goodbye, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and hopefully we'll talk soon.